Hi, welcome
Hi.
to the first episode of the Watery podcast. Today I've got with me Luke Dawson as a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lucas?
Hey, I'm Luke Dawson.
Neat. Sure does.
hmm
Alright. So here we've got 36 questions that will lead to love. I'm not gonna do all these, and that's not, my goal is not to fall in love with Luke Dawson. But
Damn it.
let's just look through the list here of questions. Alright. So one of them is, would you like to be famous, and in what way, if so?
Uh, ye- uh, that's a hard question. I guess no, I wouldn't directly like to be famous. I mean, it would be nice with money and benefits like that. But if I were to become famous, it would be in the way that like Dwayne Johnson is. How he's famous, but he's like everyone loves him, and he always gets hired for roles because you know he's just a wicked nice guy and everything. So
Yeah, that's a good answer. Or maybe like just someone who you kind of recognize on the street here and there, not someone who's like 24/7 being like, "Oh my god, it's that guy." But
right,
rather
yeah,
like, every couple days, weeks, months or whatever, someone will be like, "Oh, yeah, look at that."
right.
That sort of thing. I don't know. The money and all that though, you definitely want. Anyway, what else do we have? I'm kind of hoping one of these things will just roll into a more natural conversation because just doing a Q&A thing might be kind of weird.
Yeah,
What would constitute a perfect day for you?
a perfect day. Um, well, I'm kind of a boring person, so I don't really do much. I mean, I'm involved in. Let me rephrase that. I'm involved in many things, but outside of that, I don't do much. It's like you know, every day I go to school and you know do a bunch of school crap, and then when I get out, if it's football season, I go play football, and then go home and do my homework and go to bed. And if it's not football season, I lift heavy things, and then I go home and do my homework and go to bed. So it's like I don't really have like much to go on of what an ideal day would be. But I guess anything that involves um, like being outside and uh, doing stuff like out in nature and stuff like that. So maybe I don't know, hunting or fishing or riding dirt bikes or whatever. I like to do stuff out outdoors.
Neat. Anyway, so you mentioned school crap in there. So your English project was all about food and different
Yeah.
things about food. So
hmm
what kind of thought process and things went into picking your genres? What you did in them actually making I would think it was two cakes, right?
Yeah. So um, I I picked food because it's such a broad topic, and it's really easy to just talk about because everybody needs food to survive. I don't care if you're a meat eater or a vegan or you eat ants or I don't know whatever, but you have to eat something to survive. And I thought going in, I wanted to kind of like explore different foods and in different cultures around the world and stuff like that, and how they ate them and what they ate and stuff like that. But it the fact that it was a project kind of ruined it for me. So I had to follow guidelines and stuff like that, and there was a timeline that I had to follow, and so basically I looked at the origin of your food and where it comes from, and focused on meat especially because it's one of the hardest um, topics in food because it's so disputed on whether like where it comes from. Um, and I talked about beef and how beef comes from um, something that you can't really call a cow anymore, and it's just standing in its own shit and eating fake stuff that's supposed to be food, and it's in a cage, and they feed it steroids so that the muscles are bigger because that's where the meat comes from, and just horrible stuff like that. Um, and how if you know where your food is coming from, and so I looked at that, like the cow example, and how a lot of people use that as, oh, I'm going to be a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever. Um, but the way I look at it, meat is very important to maintaining like a healthier lifestyle. And you may not agree with me. I don't really care. But for me, if I don't have some form of meat protein, I get cranky and annoying or whatever. So um, to make a short story long, if you know where the meat is coming from, for example, you kill it yourself or you get it from a farmer's market or something like that, it's so much better and more humane, and the animal was slaughtered in a humane way. I mean, slaughtered is not a peaceful word, obviously, but um, I personally think that if you have an idea of where it comes from and how it was killed and that type of thing, how it was raised, then it's more of it's it's easier to stomach in a figurative way and in a literal way. So that's what I looked at in my project, and then I made two cakes because why the hell not? And it was a white cake, which is vanilla frosting and vanilla inside, and they were triple layer, and it was really hard, and it took me like 6 hours.
General consensus sounded good on them, though.
Yeah, they were really, really, really good, if I do say so myself. But
Nice.
the problem is that they had like, pretty sure it was 24 cups of sugar
Hmm.
overall, which is kind of disgusting when you think about it, but it was still pretty damn good.
What was it? Pizza kind of, or not pizza, but cake works better than something like pizza would or other foods, just because it serves a lot of people. You know, you have to worry about refrigerating it really or keeping it hot or whatever. So if you're just bringing it into school, then that works out well.
Right,
Um,
and like you said, the general consensus is that everyone liked it. And I only know one person doesn't like cake, and I gave some to them, and they were like, actually, this is pretty good.
hmm.
So I don't know.
So you were talking about how all the different things that they do with the cows and such. Have you heard the urban legend that I believed this when I was a little kid, but it's been disproved on Snopes and such about the KFC mutant chickens?
No, I haven't heard of that. No.
So this is what it says. It says the claim. The government forced KFC to stop using the word chicken because they serve meat from mutant animals. So they were saying the reason why people hear KFC now and not Kentucky Fried Chicken is because, exactly what it says, the government was like, well, you can't call this chicken because technically, scientifically, it's no longer a chicken. And that's false.
Yeah.
So you can see all these like photoshopped pictures they have where they're chickens with no feathers on them and they're alive and they have like 6 wings coming out of their back and like 8 legs. It's interesting. It's something. I always looked into things like that, like crazy conspiracy theories and whatever. There were like probably a couple of years where I was pretty confident that like, vampires and like Mothman and all that stuff existed.
Yeah.
That was a good while.
I actually the there are I have heard that conspiracy theory about chicken, but what I think is actually kind of disgusting is that the chicken nuggets that every fast food restaurant has, it's like the parts of the chicken that they like throw out. It's like old chickens that can't produce eggs anymore, so they're shipped off, and basically they take all the feathers off, they cut the head off, and they cut the legs off, and then chuck it into like a grinder,
Hmm.
and that's the chicken nugget, which is
Uh,
grody, and ugh.
It's interesting. That's something. Did you write about that on your project, or was that something that you kind of heard along the way, or separately, or what?
Well, it's more I kind of heard about it, but I didn't put it in my project. No.
Hmm. There was another thing I heard about when I was younger that I somewhat believed. There was supposed to be this kid who had maggots inside of his genitals that would
Oh.
come out, and so obviously that was fake. But at the time, I was probably second grade. This is what happens when you give your kid free roam on the internet, basically, from the time he's 4 years old. Um, but so I've had a callus on my ring finger since I was, probably around that age, and so I was like, what is this thing on my finger? Because it's just, that's where my pen or pencil rests when I write. And so I was I was freaked out because I thought that that was like a maggot nest or something, and that I was like dying.
Damn,
Uh,
that's gross.
yeah.
Have you heard of the? Oh, you probably have. The Russian sleep experiment.
Yeah, that creepy pasta. That's
Yeah, that freaked
crazy
me out.
stuff. That freaked me
I
out.
used to think it was real.
Ugh. Let me look this up for people who haven't heard. Well, Russian sleep experiment. Maybe there's a summary or something. There must be. Creepypasta wiki. Alright, yeah, there has to be some kind of plot summary. This is the entire thing. Alright, let's look up summary. Fact check? Yeah, we got more Snopes stuff here. That's just like blatantly false. So here's the summary that they have. A popular creepy online tale of a Russian sleep experiment with the improbable tagline of orange soda involves Soviet researchers who kept 5 people awake for 15 consecutive days through the use of an experimental gas-based stimulant and opens as follows. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilet, and enough dried food to last the 5 over a month. So my memory might be wrong on it, but if I remember, they end up killing each other and going towards cannibalism and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah,
Do you
and
remember?
then like the last, it's basically they freak out because they haven't been able to sleep and kill each other and tear out their own insides and eat them, and then it's nasty. But then um, there's like one survivor that escapes, and they have him like strapped down to a bed, and I forget exactly what he says before they kill him, but it's something like some insight into man that's like man doesn't know half the nightmare that he is inside himself or something like that. But it's kind of freaky, and I read it in French class when Mr. Davis wasn't there one
uh,
day, and David was like, "Have you heard this?" I was like, "No," so I read it, and it was, I was like, "Oh shit."
ugh. Five Nights at Freddy's came out initially, and of course now there's the whole connotation with that, but that was sort of creepypasta style too. I think it might have even been partially based on some creepypastas about Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. That game, I don't know, when it first came out, it was like all the rage, and like everyone was like, "Did you hear this? It's so scary." And I played it, and yeah, it's like jump scary, but it's not like actually like scary. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I thought the first one too was probably the only one that was really scary in that way anyway, because after a while it just resorted to, so with the second one, um or the first one anyway, it was always about very much management, and it would kind of creep you out because you knew something was getting closer and closer, so it was kind of fear of the unknown because the cameras would go out too.
Yeah,
The second one was more just kind of about stressing you out with a million things to do at once. Check the
right.
lights, check the vents, everything else. And after a while, it just got supremely edgy, where it was
Yeah,
just that was all it was just edge, and let's see how insane we can go with this and still make money. Not we really, it's just one guy. Forget what his name is. Something Scott. I almost said Nick Scott, but actually it might be it. Let me look this up. Five Nights at Freddy's creator. Scott Coffin, alright. He actually made like Christian, like little kids video games before that, and they were
is it
all
really?
terrible. So it's kind of a leap from making like let's pray to Jesus and love everybody to these kids got trapped inside, Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, and now they're out to get you.
Yeah, that's a pretty big leap.
Hmm. Ugh. Let's see. What else is there to talk about? School ends tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day. Are you even going? Do you have any finals?
I have art, uh, but and I'm torn because I like Miss Glenn, and she's having a party, and she wants us to help clean up her room.
Hmm.
I feel bad if I don't go in and help her clean up her room, but also I don't want to go to school, and my dad's picking me up, and we're gonna go shooting, and
uh,
then yeah, I So I want to like shoot as much as I can today, but also I want to help my siblings. So I'm kind of torn. I think I'm gonna go to school.
Yes, he was it. I have. I was invited to two parties, and they're at the exact same times,
Yeah.
noon to 5.
What a
So I have.
popular guy.
Huh?
So what a popular guy.
No, I know people say that, and then it's like, I don't know. I was kind of. I don't know. It's weird to talk about. What was I gonna say? I had something in mind. Yeah,
It's a good
tomorrow.
problem to have. Is when you got invited to two parties.
I guess. Um, Tomorrow I have my French final, which is going on for 3 days total. Uh,
Or
you guys said that he gives you your grade for the like multiple choice portion when you go up to him,
no,
right?
no, he gives you after you do the speaking, he tells you your speaking grade that you got. I
Oh,
got
okay.
71. But
Uh,
I did it yesterday after school
mhm.
because I wanted to get it over with and watch the movie. So,
What was
I
the
don't know.
movie?
People were. It was Le Petit Nicolas, the
Little
small
Nicholas.
Nicholas. I don't
Uh,
know. It's about this kid. Do you want me to spoil it for you? It's not that exciting.
Go ahead.
It's basically um about this kid in like 1940s or 50s France, and he and his friends like hang out at school. Like half the movie is at them at school, and basically the plot is that his friend, his friend's parents have a baby, and like the the friend is like, "Oh, this sucks. I don't like having a baby brother," and and then long story short, the kid thinks his parents are gonna have a baby, so he tries to hire the mafia to kill it. To, to get rid of the baby, and then when he realizes that that's not so bad to have a little brother, he like calls him off and is like, "Mom and Dad, I want you to have a baby brother," and they're um,
We already got your
like, "Oh no,
portion.
that's weird," and then they obviously they have one, and then at the very end of the movie, it's a girl, and he's like, "I don't want this stupid baby. It's
uh,
so stupid."
you know, you have to read a whole book in French, I think, for.
Oh,
We're
in
reading
French?
The Little Prince, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, there's an English version, there's a French version, there's a Netflix movie now too, actually. So I guess we
Yeah,
could
I
cheat that
watched
way.
that. It made me cry.
He what?
It made me cry.
Oh, is it sad?
Well,
Or is it kind of like
kind of.
bittersweet sort of thing?
Yeah, it's like bittersweet.
Yeah, I know. I think I might actually have a French version in my house somewhere because my dad grew up in France for the first 8 years of his life. Technically, he lived in Italy for 2 weeks, but that didn't last long.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, no, because his dad was stationed there in the military. He was in like
For
World
what
War
brand?
II, Korea, and Vietnam. I didn't even know. I knew he was in like Korea, and then I saw a picture of his gravestone the other week, and I was like, oh, yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else we could talk about? Because I'll probably end this out if we go like 30 seconds or a minute or so without saying much.
Yeah. I don't really have anything. What are your plans for the summer? What do you think you're gonna do over summer?
The summer?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe I'll even get around to asking people if they want to hang out. I've never done that ever in my life. Actually, I sort of did once. I asked my friends if they wanted to go to PAX. Um, but then tickets were already sold out because we were amateurs and we didn't know how early we had to buy them. Um, so yeah, maybe do that. I'll probably end up hanging around. I know this sounds stupid because like video games are a hobby and everything that you should probably enjoy. But I've almost kind of gotten into the routine of not playing them, even though I want to. So I've got like a backlog of stuff from like literally about a year ago from the summer sale 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Like BioShock Infinite, Dark Souls.
That's
I
a
have
good
over
game.
100
Bioshock
games on
Infinite's a
Steam
fun
now.
game. I love that game.
What is it?
Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah, I know. I've seen bits of it. It seems incredible, and I haven't even so much as gotten to the startup screen. Although I bought it for like $7 or something, so that's gonna be a nice experience.
I played it on 360,
Mhm.
and it was Yeah, it's kind of like freaky, but it's fun to play.
No, so for anyone who doesn't know, because we're kind of being listened to right now by probably at least one person. Um, One of the central themes of the game is sort of that it takes place in a sky city that's sort of it's like an American cult, not a cult that takes place in America in the sky, but rather a cult that sees George Washington and the other founding fathers as gods of sorts. I could be wrong. You can correct me on this because I haven't actually played the game. You have.
No,
Um,
that's mostly right. It's kind of, if you don't like pay attention, if you're one of those people who just plays the game to play the game, you're not gonna understand the game and it won't be fun for you. But if you like to like enjoy the story and like learn the backstory and stuff like that, it's freaky, but it's like interesting freaky. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that'll almost make you uncomfortable, or although I guess since it's made in the modern day, you're sort of more so empowered to make the right choice or whatever. So this isn't spoilers because it happens within the like first 15 minutes of the game or something. But you're brought up to there's a fair going on, and so you're kind of labeled on your hand saying basically you're the Antichrist or something similar, the false
Yep.
prophet rather. Um, so you I guess win a little lottery and you are given a baseball, and you can choose to either throw it at a black girl or an Irish girl. Both, of course, were persecuted in America or other parts of the world, much of history. And so you have the option to pick one of them, which I don't know. I haven't seen anybody ever do that, of course, because that'd be bad. Um, or
Real,
you can
it is
throw it at the
really
guy who's
hard.
sort of organizing the event. And so you do that, they see the mark of the false prophet on your hand, and things go crazy from there. That's basically where the game starts.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
It was a really hard choice. I threw it at the guy,
Yeah.
the the dude like running the whole show. But I don't know. I don't know what happens when you throw it at either one.
That's what I
I'm
want to see.
pretty.
I kind of wonder if maybe they would see it anyway on your hand, because they're
I
they.
bet there's an extended cut of it where if you throw it at the black girl or the Irish girl, it's like, you know, they play out a story like they don't realize, and they play out a story until a certain point where you have to do something else again, and then if they and then they notice, they inevitably notice at that point.
Yeah, and then it goes back to sort of connects to the main part of the story.
Right.
One thing that would be kind of interesting is so obviously most forms of media you see music, film, regular art, be it painted or whatever else, um, has been around for much longer than video games. So I think it would be sort of interesting to see. So we have like obviously racist television programs, movies, etc., propaganda films. Um, but I almost kind of wonder what video games would have actually been like had they been around in that time period. Like would that scene in BioShock Infinite almost have been would it have been required that you hit one of them almost something like that? I don't think the game would have made in the first place because of the themes in it being so contradictory to the beliefs at the time. But you know what I mean, right?
Right. Yeah.
Sort of very racist and stuck up, but they didn't really realize it because it was just kind of what it was like at the time. But obviously, they've only been around since like mid '70s or so.
Yeah. I I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no,
It
I
was
mean you don't need to. If it's a good game, then that's just what it is.
like I said, the plot of it is interesting to follow, and to maybe even you could relate it back to um, what's going on now, because
Mm-hmm.
it's basically, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's basically just total anarchy at one point
Mm-hmm.
because the leader is not, you know, doing well. So I don't know.
Is
It's
that
hard to
Father
talk about it without
Comstock? I think
spoiling
it
it.
is.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Another cool game I play. This is a little different, much less. Well, the themes in it are heavy, but they're less societal commentary and more social commentary, and more so just an interesting story. And that it's receiving a prequel in I think August or so, or the first episode of the prequel, and that's Life is Strange. Have you played that?
I have not. No.
Have you heard of it?
Nope. Actually, no.
So it's just one story driven. It's not like there's any shooting, driving sequences or anything like that. There is a part where you're in a car, but you're not the one driving it. It's just speaking. Um, it's completely story driven. You play as this girl named Max to an art high school for photography. So right off the bat, again, this isn't spoilers. Happens within the first 5 minutes. You can't prevent it. Um, you go into the girls' room, I think hiding from someone, um, and you see sort of Butterfly on what do you call it? A janitorial thing, where water and mops and whatever are stored. So she goes to
Right.
take a picture of it. She's a photography student, and it looks pretty and it looks cool. Um, and all of a sudden, this guy comes in, and this girl's in front of her, running from her, and she notices around the corner that it's an old friend of hers. And so the guy takes out a gun and shoots her right there in the bathroom and runs out um,
Damn.
for drug money. And then, so I forget exactly what happens, but something is sort of triggered inside your or Max's head, and blood sort of rushes through your head, and now you're like a few minutes back in class where you were before, and you sort of realize that you can force yourself to time travel. And so it's neat in that it's a narrative-driven game, but you can go back and change things in the past. And so it's neat. And I think at one point you even go back to when you were 12 years old or so, but that's a bit much in the ways of. That's not really spoilery, 100%. But it just goes to show the sort of things that are explored. It's an episodic game. I think it's like $20 normally, but I got it for like 10 everything together. So I would recommend that. It's a good one.
Yeah, that's cool. I enjoy games like that.
Very much narrative-driven things.
Yeah.
Like I know Telltale is they're probably the biggest creator of those sorts of games. Although I've heard their things have been going downhill lately, to the point where people almost just call it, is it a Telltale game or something when they hear that it's story-driven. They did The Walking Dead, they did The Wolf Among
Yeah,
Us,
I was gonna say
Game
they,
of Thrones,
they do that.
Batman, all sorts of things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I while we're on games, Battlefield One is I think my favorite Xbox game at the moment.
Yeah, I'm garbage at it, but it's a lot of fun. I have it. I'm looking at like the title on my screen right now, even. Um, but it's neat.
Yeah, it's I like it because it's you don't have to pick like a certain class and like you have to stick with that class. It's like if you want, you can change from assault to medic to support to scout or whatever you want. Um, and then if you play enough in that class, you can change your guns and get a shotgun for the assault class or whatever. And I I like how you can do that because sometimes there's some maps where it's like your favorite class may not work as well.
Hmm.
Um, like the medic class is my favorite class, and it has been my favorite class since I started playing. But many of the maps that I play on aren't good for like um, a, a semi-automatic rifle, like bolt action rifle. So you switch to assault with a shotgun, or support with a big um, heavy machine gun, or sniper class, the scout class. And I like how it's so like versatile. You can do whatever you want. Also, it's realistic. So like in the large scale wars and tanks and stuff like that. And if you're in a plane shooting at another plane like next to you or behind you or whatever, you have to lead it with the bullets. So because it takes into account the air and the movement and the gravity and stuff like that. And like if you're shooting a cannon across the map, you have to aim upwards from your
Yeah.
target
There's
if
like
you want to
bullet
hit it.
travel time and what do you call it? Bullet drop, as they say.
Right. I like when games have that, and some people are like, "Oh, it's so stupid. It's too realistic. It's not fun when you play like that." And I think it is. I think it brings into account a whole new set of skills and logic and math and stuff like that. That people, some 12-year-old gamer that you know sits at home and games all day is not gonna enjoy it because you have to think about it.
Yeah, I think both hit scan for anyone still listening who has no idea what we're talking about. Hit scan is what it's called in games when if you shoot a gun or something like that, then the bullet instantly goes to where you're aiming. Like it just basically teleports and it checks did this person hit anything or did they not. Whereas in the game like Battlefield, like I said, like we said, there's bullet travel time and there is bullet drop, so it's actually more of a physical object that moves through space. Um, I think both have their place. I think if you just only had one or the other, then it wouldn't really make much sense. Or
Right.
rather, it could, but I think they have their place in different games. Overwatch, for example, is a game that uses both. So when you have characters like uh, Tracer, although I think Tracer actually might have travel time, but she doesn't have bullet drop. She's meant to be very fast-paced and snappy as a character, and so it makes sense for her projectiles to be, for the most part, uh, hit scan. Whereas in a big game like Battlefield 1, where you really want to have things have more of a feeling of space, space and feeling and everything in a real world. Obviously, it's not real, um, but you want things to feel more realistic. Obviously, is what I'm saying. Then in
Right.
that case, it makes more sense to have physics and such attached to your projectiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Battlefield as a whole has it's much more free flow. You were talking about how not every class is going to work on every map. You're going to want to switch things up a little bit, switch which loadout you have, sort of, to accommodate for the circumstances. And the whole game is very fluid in that way. You have the different vehicles that can move around the map, the ways in which the vehicles are controlled. In Battlefield 1 specifically, most of the map is destructible. You can just like level an entire building if you want to.
Yep. I like that.
And you have to play around that in a way. And that's something that some people might dismiss as, they're just showing technical prowess. They just want to show off, hey guys, look what our fancy computers and software can do. But it very much does have its place in gameplay in that it can completely change a map. You're not always going to be playing the same thing. Now sometimes maybe the meta will evolve and people say, alright, always destroy this building. If you're on this side, you'll have more of an advantage. Maybe that'll happen at some point, but I think regardless, the fact that everything else is still there to be destroyed, if there's a shell dropped somewhere and there's an explosion in the ground, that snipers can hide in that, and so that sort of thing is always going to be there, and it allows for very free-flowing, evolutionary gameplay, and it's neat.
Yeah. Yep. You mentioned the um, how you can destroy your environment, and all, you mentioned how it could be used to the advantage of certain people, um, and I agree with that. I really like how you're able to, like, when a shell hits and it makes a crater, like you said, you could have a sniper down in there, or you know something like that. I like how that's different from your mainstream game, first person shooter
Call of
generally,
Duty's the
where
big one, yeah.
right, and there's you can't destroy your environment, and it's different. Um, Different, not necessarily bad or worse or better or whatever. It's different, and it's a different type of gameplay that I like better personally.
And people might dismiss them because they'll think, alright, well, this is a first-person shooter. It looks, has realistic visuals and all that. Maybe they just take place in a different time period, different setting, different weapons and all that. But for the most part, a lot of people will just dismiss the whole genre as being one lump of, click on the other person's head.
Right.
But Battlefield and Call of Duty being the big ones, you really can see their differences in just the way that they play out. Even just looking at the maps and their size and everything and their destructibility versus the lack thereof. And it's neat.
Right. The World Call of Duty World War II trailer came out recently,
I saw that,
and
yeah.
I when I watched it, I was thinking to myself, I was like, this looks exactly like Battlefield 1.
No, I think that
And
was
people
probably
are
where
like,
their inspiration came from.
oh right, yeah, because people liked it so much. But it's like, I've heard people say, oh, Battlefield 1 is World War 1, and this is World War 2. And it's like, yeah, but it's basically um, the same gameplay, same graphics,
Yeah, I don't think there's an
similar
issue with it.
guns, because both wars happened very close to each other in time. So,
Yeah, I don't think there's an issue with it. I think competition is good in the same space and everything.
well, right, that's what I'm saying. They're so similar. It's going to be interesting to figure out. Or
Yeah,
not to
which
figure out,
one
but to
does
see
better
which
than the
one,
other in what areas, yeah.
right.
What was it? I did my English thing on esports, and it was pretty bad, just that being professionally played video games.
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield and Call of Duty. Call of Duty is bigger than Battlefield in that sort of space, but neither of them are very big. And I don't know 100% why that is. Battlefield, it's probably because it's very tough to watch, because of course you've got 32 versus 32 fights. You've got to worry about observing, which is just the practice of basically having people act as cameramen and camerawomen, to go and see, alright, well, whose perspective should we show on the stream, or on the streams, and that's very tough when the primary point of view that you're going to be showing to actually display a player's skill is in the first person. So obviously you can't show all 64 people at once from that perspective. That's very tough to do.
Right.
Call of Duty, it's similar. There are more game modes and there are less focused game modes. So the games are very much balanced around one central idea, but rather they're all done at once. and so it can be tough to maintain. The game's competitively, it has competitive integrity, but it's hard to maintain competitive balance, I guess, in that sort of setting. I'm sure there's other things to it too, like the fact that the game is generally seen as more casual. Um, but yeah,
What what kinds of games are played competitively?
I think the main criteria come down to a it has to be you have to be able to make money off of playing it competitively, or rather showing it competitively. Making money. You sell out a stadium for it. You have all sorts of advertisers who want to be on your live streams and things. Second is the complete lack of luck, or not complete, um, but having way more focus on skill than luck in games. So in my PowerPoint presentation I showed in class, I made the comparison of two, pretty well-known games, Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. So Mario Kart's known for being very wacky, off-the-wall stuff. All sorts of items, completely random, and it's very much based on luck. And so something like that wouldn't work as an esport because you're not going to have people being paid for something that they're not guaranteed to win for skill, because then any random kid could go up there, play, and be as good as the professionals. Maybe not as good, but I'm sure you know my point.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas, even if you were to turn off all the items so that it were completely skill-based, which it wouldn't even be completely because you've got stage hazards, um, but even disregarding that, it just wouldn't be a lot of fun to watch. And then you've got Super Smash Brothers, where there are a lot of items, stage hazards, and so on that allow for a lot of luck if you want to play in a sort of party casual sort of setting. But you can turn all that off and still have all the stages with their complete competitive integrity, and you can just play on those, and it'll be completely down to skill. It's a lot of fun to watch, although that game individually is a little more niche. So the three biggest esports probably are League of Legends, Dota 2, and CS:GO, or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and those, I think, all boil down. They have those same things, a lot of lack of luck, or if they do have luck, then it's there to discourage doing something. Like in Counter-Strike, every gun has a sort of pattern to it, so you shoot it, and the more you shoot it, then the less accurate it gets, and so you have to learn to control that by maybe pulling down your mouse in the opposite direction that it's shooting in. So that you can maintain a spray, as they say, spray control. What was I going to say? I just kind of lost my complete train of thought. Oh yeah, I was talking about how RNG can be used to go against the player. So in that game, if you're moving, you're not going to be able to kill anything. So what they do is when you're moving, then they make your spray, or the pattern in which your bullets go, basically completely random. To kind of discourage running gun gameplay. So anyway, going back to what makes them competitively viable as an esport, it's just enjoyable to watch, so they can see a large display of skill, completely in the hands of the player. That'll very much wow an audience. And so League of Legends and Dota have that in teamwork sort of. Where you can see a lot of work together as a team, which is exactly what teamwork is. So that was kind of redundant. And just big plays coming out all the time that'll have a big impact on it. It can't be too repetitive, that sort of thing. Yeah, that was pretty incoherent, probably. But there's my answer.
That made fairly good sense to me, even though I don't know much about computers. I had to have mine wiped. This thing is like 6 years old. First of all, I had to have it wiped year and a half ago because it was crapping its pants and like being really slow and wouldn't load certain things and stuff like that. And I was pissed off because it was annoying. We took it to Best Buy, and I was like, "What can I do with this that'll make it not shit anymore?" And the guy was like, "Between you and me, there's a secret." And he showed me how. I forget how, but he showed me how to just totally wipe literally everything off the computer, and stuff. Like it's fresh, brand new. And he was like, and we were like, "Oh, well, thank you so much. What can we do?" And he's like, "Don't even worry about it. It's so easy. It took me 5 minutes."
That's good.
Awesome.
My computer I built, with my hands.
Nice.
Well, somewhat. I had to get help for part of it, but
mine's a PC, so it's like not a PC, a laptop.
no, I think you can build laptops too, but that's not very common. Or you would have to, not really though, because you could not very easily.
I didn't. I'm not. enough like dedicated into um, gaming on my computer or on anything rather uh, to build an actual PC with a tower and
Yeah, mine's a little. Some things I think the fact that I came in as a complete newcomer to the PC building thing, when I did it, I could have made a couple decisions wiser. I could have probably gotten a cheaper motherboard that worked just as well. That's basically the backbone of your computer that holds everything together,
Mhm.
not just physically, but as in it electrically connects everything and makes sure all data can go through correctly. CPU could have been a little stronger. That's the brain of the computer. Now that I've got a stronger graphics card, which is basically what powers, of course, all graphics, um, it's kind of held back because it's so good by the older CPU. So I think I could have done everything a little better. My hard drive has been making scary sounds, but it's been doing that for like 6 months now, and it's not dead yet, so I'm not going to replace it yet. Um, which is, might be a little irresponsible, but I don't have anything important on my hard drive anyway, so yeah.
Cool.
Sure does. I was deeply offended today. Somebody showed they were doing interviews for their English project about dreams, and so they went up to me and they cut mine out because they said there was foul language, but there was not. Because they thought I said the F word, but I knew they were recording probably for a project, so I just said F as in the letter of the alphabet.
Oh,
Which probably could have done better than that. But then somebody else was implying explicit things in their dream. I think they were joking anyway. But oh well.
whatever.
It's all good.
Eh,
All right. Well, uh, I got nothing else.
me either. Either.
Oh, that's good, I guess.
Alright, so that wraps up the first episode of the Dude Watery podcast. If you're still listening, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but thank you. Episode 2 will come eventually. We'll find out. I don't know when. We'll see.